We are live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg, and it's that time of evening, one of my favorites, by the way, where we engage with you on matters that affect you, matters that affect your family, matters that affect your community. Tonight, the safety with regards to rituals as well as traditional practices. Why, you ask? Well, it's topical. A very good evening to you, South Africa, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Our digital audience, please, Lucia, thank you very much indeed. There they are. Good to have them on the program. We're going to get your burning questions as well as your comments for our guests in a short while. And just a reminder, digital audience, if you have any comments or questions, please put your virtual hand up, and I'll try my very best to get your comments on air. Water. It's said to be one of the most prolific symbols in world religions, but it can also pose great danger, right? The recent drownings in the Yixkay River, a case in point. The body count, 15. Tragic. We've seen an outpouring of lamentation. We're told a torrent swept away congregants during the religious ceremony. So much death, so much pain. We need answers. Religious communities, they have a right to exercise their faith, to practice their rituals. But this tragedy also throws water safety into the spotlight. So we need a wider perspective as well. Firstly, we want to learn more about various religious ceremonies that are performed here in South Africa, near or in rivers, the oceans. And two, we want to focus on the risks, as well as safety issues, as well as solutions. That's what this show is all about. Solutions driven. Why this matters and what's the appropriate response. What we know and what we need to know. We're going to discuss. Which leads us to our question of the week. And we ask you, with regards to the Yixkay River, what should be done to provide safety for those who want to perform religious as well as traditional rituals in rivers and dams? At It's Topical, SABC is where we're at. We need your help on this one, my brothers and sisters. So the head and the heart need to come together for clarity of thought. Walk with me while we get you more context. So there is this respect, right? In order for people to perform their rituals as well as the traditional ceremonies, but also there's this need to alert everybody about the dangers associated with baptism in rivers, dams, and the oceans. What would you regard as a safe environment? Let us know at It's Topical SABC. Now, time for your roundup. Let's take a look at some of the other topical stories of the past week. The ANC's Electoral Committee has barred former ANC Women's League President Batabile Dlamini and former party chief whip Tony Ngeni from running as additional members of the NEC. And according to the rules of the committee, those found guilty of serious crime for which the prison sentence has been more than 6 months are ineligible to stand for an NEC position or that of the top six. You'll remember earlier this year, Dlamini was found guilty of perjury. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison or the option of paying a 200,000 rand fine. In 2003, Ngeni was sentenced to 4 years in prison, having been found guilty of fraud in a case linked to the arms deal, we're told. Dlamini is challenging the Electoral Committee's decision, whilst Ngeni expressed his dissatisfaction on social media, saying the disqualification of members will finish the ANC. The Electoral Committee says they will soon publish a full list of those who will be disqualified from standing for positions at the conference that starts, as you know, this coming Friday at Nasrec. All right, so I want to take a look at some of your comments with regards to this. And you had a lot to say with regards to the disqualification of these two ANC heavyweights on SABC's Facebook page. Just put it up there for you and have a look at this. This is the SABC Facebook page, and a number of comments as well with regards to this. Just quick off the top regarding these comments. That's good news, says Nyomani. I love Ramadola. He's cleaning up the ANC silently, says Rodzani. Good news there. And Larato saying, Hired gun for self-destructive ANC, it will end in tears. Some of the comments with regards to what we're talking about tonight. Look, it's the most topical sporting story of the weekend, right? The South African Football Association has congratulated Morocco after the North Africans became the first country from Africa to qualify for the final four of the FIFA World Cup. Morocco became the first African team in the semi-finals of the FIFA World Cup since the inaugural tournament in 1930. According to SAFA's president, Daniel Dan, Africa waited for 92 years to reach the last four, and this is a wonderful achievement for the Confederation of African Football. Why? It's under the leadership of a South African, Patrice Motsepe. Morocco's brilliant run in Qatar has broken new ground for the sport outside of Europe and South America. The North Africans are now one game away from the Cup final. But not everybody was celebrating this major milestone, especially on the political front. Let me show you what one Mbuyiseni Dlozi had to say with regards to this. Take a look. It's garnered quite a bit of interest on social media, saying Africa must reject Morocco until they end their occupation of Western Sahara. I refuse to celebrate. And it follows, as you can see, with regards to the comments. How many retweets? A lot of likes as well. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Sihle Zegelala saying that is very correct. No African country can colonize or occupy another country. A number of other comments as well. Lebachang saying you're a principal leader. You refuse to be moved by a sporting event. Admire your conviction. And just finally, Mwila saying that if you don't want to celebrate them, don't. We shall. All the best with seeing politics and everything. We support South African football as Africans, regardless of xenophobic attacks on our fellow Africans. So that's basically the sentiment on the ground with regards to that. We'll be keeping a close eye on both the ANC National Conference that's happening this week, as well as the semi-finals of the FIFA World Cup 2022. All right, let's wrap the roundup with this story now. Search and rescue teams have recovered the body of an off-duty police officer whose vehicle was swept away by floodwaters in Soweto on Friday. Soweto and several parts of the Johannesburg metro have been severely impacted by the floods that have caused so much damage to roads and houses, businesses, as well as power supply infrastructure. This comes as the city of Johannesburg plans to relocate scores of people living along the Yukskay River in Alexandra, north of the city, to a safer place. Now, Soweto, Alexandra, Roodepoort and Randburg were among the areas that were hardest hit in the recent floods in Gauteng. All right, that's where we'll leave the roundup. And to return to our main topic of the day, for that, let's head off to the magic wall. This is where we get you context with regards to the recent events. And I want to highlight this for you. We're talking about the recent baptism drownings, right? And this is from June 2022 in Limpopo. 4 people fell into water. 1 managed to swim out the dam. 1 was rescued, and 2 bodies were retrieved. Let's have a look at what happened in November 2022. PPD Dam in Limpopo. 3 church members, right? 3 church members fell into the dam. 1 managed to swim to safety. 2 bodies recovered. What about Inanda? This is recent. Beginning of this month, 1st of December. In Inanda Dam, we have, I beg your pardon, let me just go back to that. Inanda Dam, 2022, 1st of December. Pastor and a congregant drowned. The congregant's body was recovered. Good news, the pastor, though, is still missing. And then the recent one, on the 2nd of December, Yukskay River in Gauteng. What we have, 15 people were washed away. The pastor was saved by the congregants. The pastor has since reportedly gone missing. We're going to discuss this in a short while. Let's clear the screen for you so you have a better background with regards to our topic. So the water and religion, it manifests itself in uniquely different ways, in different cultures. Some believe it holds purifying and cleansing powers. Some say it symbolizes the rebirth and purity. And for others, it symbolizes wisdom. I have a strong affinity for the culture. I respect the creed. But as we incorporate water in rituals and practices, how do we stay safe? At this point, let's take a look at our regular feature, Word on the Street, which comes from the banks of the Yixkay River.
Lento kubhabhatizwa abantwana eJuskay abantu basesontweni ayiphele. Abantu mabaye ema-swimming pool bowuthandazela khona bayeke amanzi angcolile waseJuskay.
Thina abantu abamnyama sikholela kakhulu entweni spiritually. So ngicabanga ukuthi abantu bebhabhatise emfuleni ngokwami ku right because siyasizakala and then mawunezinto zakhe engahambi kahle lifeini thothi kumele ungene emanzini so siyangena emanzini then usizakala uthola usizo.
Johannesburg River ena le stories engata so ba batlamele ba check gore like when to come mona go tlo etsa whatever ile gore ba yetsa so re feel bad for gore vele ntwe e etsagetseng for the family tsa bona mara le bona ba tlamele ba be careful then ba khone go tseba gore ba tlamele ba tle ka nako tse jwang.
Twe makatsang gore just maybe the timing ya bona ya bona gore no ka itletse or pula yana ke mo ba sa khone go match. You know, as real Africans re ne le di beliefs tse tlhoganeng, so even if re tseba kotsi ya ntho but ka o fulfita di rituals tsa rona or the beliefs, people end up batlang mona le noma gore yana or aene but ka se etsagetseng. I mean, I was very shocked, really nice member of the community.
Baruta ba sanela go kolobetsa batho ka nako ya dipula batho ba tere ke metsi because of kolobetsa. Respect nature because sometimes it's very dangerous.
Xlavekaka ikuri ndawu leyiwani yi va yi ri safe ku va na ti-patrol nyana vanhu va karhi va cheka ku vanhu a va holi phakatini ka Johannesburg na hi ku ya hi tindhawu la Johannesburg yi fambaka kona then ku va na vanhu lava langutaku government yi nga hi pfuna hi swilo swo fana sweswo then lava khuvulaka ka ndhawu ya swona a va ringeti ku va ku ri na ku va langutisisa kahle ku nambu lowuwani wu njhani hi ku nkarhi wun'wanyani wu nga tshika swi endlekini ku tala va nga langutani.
All right, we do appreciate your thoughts. At It's Topical SABC, we go out on the streets to get your views. Why? Because it shapes the strategy of getting to that better place. Follow me. Let's start these discussions. We want to know, it must be stressed that we respect the beliefs, we respect religion, but we need to get to a better place in terms of being safe as well. We're joined in studio by Johannesburg Emergency Services, Xolile Khumalo. Thank you very much indeed for your time. We also have a digital audience. We'll get to them in a short while. Also joining us via Zoom is, or is it Skype? Professor Mathole Motshekga is the Executive Director of Kara Heritage Institute, historian as well as cultural activist. We'll be joined by him in a short while. Xolile, to you first. I want to get a sense of the recent incidents in the Yixkay River. 15, the count, correct? Is the baby, we understand that the 3-month-old baby, our hearts goes out to the family and friends of those who have lost. 3-month-old baby still missing?
Good evening, Blair. Thank you for the invite. Yes, the total count of 15 people have been found. And yes, the 3-month-old baby is missing still. We have not found the baby yet.
Is the search continuing though?
The search is still continuing. The EMS team was on the ground from this morning around about 8 o'clock. They called off the search just before 6 in the evening. So they were searching. Why? Because it gets dark, so you can't really do anything in the dark. So we're still waiting to hear from management whether it carries on tomorrow morning. The reason
why I asked why, because I read that the weather didn't play didn't play ball as well. Yes. Is that hampering search?
Yes, it does. It does hamper it as well, because if we are warned of rains or an imminent storm, we have to call it off.
Right. Yes. What were the circumstances that led to this tragedy? What do we know?
From what we know, the people had gone for a ritual of some form or a cleansing ceremony. That's all we know for now. Yes.
And how many people originally? And how many?
It's really tricky to say, but the number that was given, they had said that 33 people were part of the ceremony. Yes.
Right. And we know that we're still waiting for, well, one is missing so far, but there could be more.
We cannot really confirm that, because the people who had come forward for assistance, who had called on the emergency management services, are 15 families, of which the 15 bodies have been recovered. We're just searching for this baby now.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Let's bring in our digital audience as well and get their say with regards to what we're talking about. Let's bring in Gregory John now. Gregory John, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The sacredness of water in religion. We know that it means a lot of things to a lot of people, different ways. Knowledge, purity, etc. Talk to us about the significance of baptism in rivers, in dams, in ocean, as opposed to a more controlled environment.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share. We just want to, first and foremost, express our very sincere condolences to all the family members who have lost loved ones that should have been a celebratory occasion that has now turned out into a great tragedy. So our sincere condolence is expressed to all of those family members. Indeed, our Constitution guarantees the right of every religion to be practiced in the way that they seem fit. The denomination that I represent preaches and teaches and practice what we call believers' baptism. In other words, a person must first and foremost profess a faith in Jesus Christ, and as an outward sign of that commitment to Jesus, that person is publicly baptized. It is witnessed by others as symbolizing the death and the burial and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, I fully understand that not many people have the luxury to practice water baptism in a safe environment, as in a church with a font or a pool. And so there is also the need then for others to go outside and perform that rite or ritual in a river or in the ocean. And so we are very sympathetic to that thought, that not all have the luxury of being in an enclosed, protected environment where there is imminent danger or actual danger that they are able to rescue or help somebody that might, gone under the water. But I am very sympathetic to those who don't have this privilege.
Let me bring in Gogo Dineo Ndlanzi on to the program. Good to have you, Gogo Dineo. Look, baptism, it symbolizes death, burial, resurrection, the importance of water, the sacredness of water. But, and I'm saying this, people have a right to practice their religions, their rituals, ceremonies. They have a right. But with rights comes responsibility. How best can we make sure that these rituals don't end in tragedy? What's your take? If you can unmute, Gogo.
I just realized I'm muted.
Sure.
Tawazani, thank you so much for having me in studio. I think I'll concur the condolences that Pastor Gregory has said to the family. It's a very tragic event. I think it's nice for us to speak about our constitutional rights, yet certain constitutional rights, when it comes to practicality, they don't happen. My experience as a Sangoma who uses rivers a lot is that we have limited access to safe river spaces as well. because our bylaw still restricts people like us to access spaces. In this circumstance and this situation, we can make a lot of assumption based on secondhand information of what exactly happened. But safety does not begin by the river. There are a lot of contributing factors that creates a safe environment where one can practice their religious practices. Water is a rejuvenator, water is a cleanser, and water is a healer, because we do understand the elements of water. Our bodies are made of 70% of water. Yet in this regard, as we take people into the spaces, are we the rightful people to take people there? Because right now, when it comes to, religion, culture, everyone can wake up and claim to be a prophet, claim to be a sangoma, and wants to perform these mass rituals alone. Because when you perform a ritual, there is a community of helpers that works with an elder that facilitate those things as a safety element. So there's a lot of things, because you are also taught rites of passage. So the rituals have safety elements. There are things that are done before, there are things that are done during, and there are things that are done post to ensure the safety, and that the one who is going into the water gets the benefit. And it doesn't always have to become a mass, of taking everyone into the river. There's things like ukzila, right? Where we call that, there are things we go to observe prior to going to the water, because we respect that space as an expression of divinity, and we understand that there are rules of engagements when we go into water. But we don't see those rules of engagement being observed, because we also need to understand not everybody who claims to be a prophet, a sangoma, or a pastor is rightfully so. And that's where the danger is.
What would be right up there in terms of your checklist before performing such rituals in order to make it more safer? What would you need to tick off?
Well, in my context is that I need to first check if I can go to the water. Need to understand that, is this the right time to go into the water? Because we don't do mass water rituals in, when it's a rainy season. In African spirituality, we used to perform those things in winter, because we also understood that in that time, a lot of, elements of nature have hibernated, which gives us allowance and permission to enter. Then there are rituals that one performs as a facilitator, who's going to be leading those ceremonies to ensure that there is safety. But the participants also have to observe certain things prior to them going into the river. So there's diets that people have to observe. There's a non-engagements of sexual activities before you go into water. So there's a lot of things that we need to go into. From the story that I read, and this is what we had, we're not sure if that's exactly what happened, is that the pastor normally has a prophecy on the day and say, it is time for us to go to the river to perform a baptism or a cleansing. And according to me, those things are prepared for in advance, so that people who are going, and you as a pastor, can also gather the tools you need to ensure safety of the people that you are taking into those spaces. It's not I wake up and I'm going to the water. We revere water so much that we understand that there's a guardian that's watching over that space, that if we are not respectful, we can face tragedies that we have faced.
Let's bring back Kolile before we get to Yandisa. What do we know about the whereabouts of the pastor in this regard?
As far as EMS is concerned, we do not know where the pastor is right now, but we are working together with other law enforcement agencies, for an example, SAPS, who are dealing with the investigative side of this matter.
What does a bylaw, city bylaw, say with regards to performing such rituals near rivers, dams, the ocean?
Right now, there isn't any, but it should be like something that the city takes into consideration. But we also have to involve the community in having that bylaw adopted.
We're going to talk more with regards to the bylaws in a short while. I just want to bring in Yandisa. Let's get your take with regards to how do we, or what the responsibility does religious leaders have in protecting the flock, so to speak, the congregants that they bring for these rituals as well. What's your take? Yandisa, if you can unmute it, please. There you go. All right, I think we're having a bit of an issue with Yandisa. I'll tell my producer to just maybe assist her in terms of unmuting. Let's go to Nonza J. Nonza, if you can unmute, your take with regards to how do we protect the faithful when performing such rituals and traditional ceremonies?
Firstly, let me just say thank you for having me in this show as well. And condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones. I also want to apologize because I keep on cutting. I think it's due to network
load shedding.
Because of load shedding, yes. But what I would like to say is that I think, you know, for the churches and the traditional healers to perform these rituals, they need to think about looking for more safer spaces. Firstly, I don't think, especially in Johannesburg, that they do have rivers whereby they can perform these rituals. Clean rivers, conducive rivers, whereby, for health reasons as well, whereby they can dip in these people. And the churches as well, they need to check the places. If the places are safe enough for them to, so that they can protect, you know, these innocent people. I keep on asking myself a question right now. How did it happen that 15 or more than 15 people got into water at the same time? Because, you know, you baptize one person at a time, unless maybe there were many people that were baptizing. And I'm asking myself, were there more than 10 people baptizing these people? How did more than 15 people get into a stream simultaneously? So I think they need to look for pools and maybe for places where they can perform these rituals. I think it was a lesson learned, but it was a hard lesson because those families are bereaving right now. They are hurt right now. And I wonder if any of the people that don't believe in churches will ever go to church because of what has happened.
Yandisa, I understand that you are unmuted now, but I'll come back to you in a short while. Let me bring in Professor Motshekga, cultural expert, historian. Sir, look, no doubt religions have such a strong relationship with water, but I guess the issue is, how do you highlight that of the scriptures together with the contemporary dangers without putting up walls and alienating people, without, you know, people saying, you know what, that's my religion, let me do what I need to do? How do you better educate or inform people about the dangers?
Our starting point should be an understanding of nature itself. I come from an ancient African religion called Karaism, religion of light, which was founded by Lord Kem or Thoth Hermes, which says that the universe consists of parts which are interconnected, interrelated, and integrated to form one organism. Now, there are sacred spaces on earth. These sacred spaces are places where individuals interact with the spiritual world.
Right.
Those places are found on riverbanks, mountains, and caves. But now the imported religions don't know Africa, don't respect these spaces. For instance, so the so-called Jekskei River is Malundi River. And
Oops, Professor Motshekga, I think we lost you. Did you unmute? All right, it seems that we're having a bit of an issue with Professor Mathole Motshekga. They will try to get back to him in a short while. Let's bring in Yandisa. Yandisa, I hope we can hear you now. Your take. You were saying earlier on.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Condolences to the families. I'd like to agree with what Gogo Dileo said. Those processes that we follow before we go to the river,
yes,
as abantu bomoya, abantu bamanzi. Firstly, I believe that whether it's the Holy Spirit or it's abantu abadala, they're supposed to speak to you first before your pastor or the traditional healer can talk to you about going to emanzini. And if those processes aren't followed, then you are likely to have those incidents that happened. And I'm saying that because if you look at one of the videos, there's a lady who was screaming, and clearly she didn't want to be baptized, and they were forcing her in the water, you know. And those are the things that then could lead to those accidents, you know, people drowning and yes.
All right. Let me bring in Khadebe Lihle.
I'm back.
All right, Professor Motshekga, thank you very much indeed. We'll come back to you in a short while. I'm going to bring in Khadebe Lihle now to get your take with regards to how do we better safeguard our community while still maintaining and practicing our religious rituals and ceremonies. Your take, if you can unmute Khadebe Lihle. Do we have him? All right, there we go.
Greetings everybody, and my condolences to the family as well. Listen, you know, there's a lot that's happening in this world right now, and things are no longer the same anymore, right? There has to be proper measures that have to be taken, either religious or spiritually, in order for you to articulate something like this. It's like, it won't be easy now for people to just get baptized like that, right? Without anything happening, you know, from a negative aspect of the background of any energy that might come with the certain people that are there who are not grounded and not well properly aligned.
Yes.
So if there's no better education when people have to be at a certain level in order for them to actually partake in such, then there will be some negative things that transpire. I personally would say that there's a lot that needs to be done when it comes to this natural waters before anybody can actually articulate with the energies right now. Back then, for 2000, it was something different, but now it's happening in a different way that people are losing their lives. And it's not to say that there has to be somebody that has to be blamed for it, right? Unfortunately, it happened. It's very painful. However, how are we looking into this thing when we have to connect with the water spiritually? Are we doing something that is proper in a very well-aligned way, or are we just doing it because we think that we have that experience of doing it all the time? Because it could be that back in the days when you used to do that, it was proper then, right? Nothing was going to transpire. But now, because the energies are different, right, there will be lives that will be lost. So it's something that has to be looked into in a very deeper manner, not just to see the incident that happened, but what really caused it from the first place. And my take is the energies are no longer the same anymore. It means that things are advancing. Everything has to change. So things won't be articulated in that manner all the time.
I just want, look, it's a very important point that you're raising, and I want to get, you know, more enlightened with regards to some of the terms you're using. When you talk about energies, what do you mean?
All right. So right now we're living in the Aquarius age, right? It means that now everything that which comes with technology and spirituality is actually advancing at a greater length than it was before. So if I have a different energy and it's not properly aligned and cleansed with the specific energy that connects with the water, it might be the element of fire or the element of earth. If my energies are not accord and one with that element, then it will affect me. It means that now there will be people who lose their lives in accord of doing something which they are not prepared for. So it could be that whosoever that ushers the people who has to enter the waters, where they prepared well in a manner that is acceptant with the spirit of the waters or not. So did that person really make a research with the people's soul if whether or not it is properly aligned with the waters?
I hear
then if
you.
it's not, unfortunately, then something will transpire.
You are talking about the energies for the religious leader, correct?
No. I wasn't talking
Not necessarily.
to the religious. I was just talking in general. Spiritual.
Okay. All right. What are some of the red flags in terms of the concept or theory of energy? What are some of the what can congregants pick up in terms of saying, maybe this is a bit off?
Excuse, come again?
In terms of the red flags, when you say somebody's energy is off, I just want to know what are some of the red flags? How does one identify that?
All right. So I'm just going to have to go deeper in order for viewers to actually understand what I'm talking about. We have centers that are connected with our energies. From our lower chakras, there's something that is called the lower chakra and the higher chakras. Now, these chakras are connected with our aura. Usually in the religious aspect, there's a depiction of Jesus Christ having this halo, right, from behind. It's like an example of an aura that surrounds each and everybody in this world. Now, if the energies are not properly aligned and well cleansed and balanced, then it becomes a different effect. It means that if you have the energy to detect that if a person is living from a low vibration, you can actually tell that this person is only living from a low vibration, they're not living from a high vibration. It means that whatever that they are doing, right, it does not center the grounding of the nature, but something else that doesn't actually allow nature to take its course. So you can actually tell by the way a person is reacting, right, their ideology or how they think, how they perceive things in this world. You can actually tell if whether or not they're working on the energy that is low or on the energy that is high.
Look, I think it's so important that you explain it, because this is all about educating as well, enlightening those. And there's so many different aspects to this. It's not just about putting water on somebody or the immersion of somebody in terms of baptism. Important indeed. Let's bring in Professor Motshekga. I'm not sure if you heard what our last speaker had to say regarding the energies. And I guess the big point I'm trying to make is the different aspects that go into making a decision whether to follow that religious leader when we say it's time for baptism, let's go to the river. What's your take? Oops, Professor, if you can unmute. Are you unmuted?
I'm muted.
There we go. Go on.
I say there are sacred spaces on earth. These sacred spaces are in rivers, mountains, and caves. And they are guarded by spiritual beings like snakes, crocodiles. And before you enter those spaces, like Elundini in Jekske River, which is called Maluti River, you have to cleanse yourself. For instance, abstain from sex for some time, and then observe certain rituals, communicate with the ancestors, appease them, inform them that you are going to a sacred space. But you see, the indigenous African practices, which are despised, disregarded, are the ones that give you protection to go there. And now these Christian and other churches don't believe in those rituals, and as a result, they think they can just walk in and out anytime. And that's dangerous. And now if you deal with the indigenous religious people, like the Shembes, the ZCC, the Lekhanyanas, they have a way of communicating with the ancestral world to assure you in advance that the place will be safe for you. That's why some of us believe that Karaism, the religion of light, which will be unveiled towards Christmas this year, is an essential part of teaching, because we live in Africa and these sacred places are in Africa and they are regulated by African rituals. Now the imported religions don't understand that part, and that's why our people will keep on dying because they go there without observing these rituals.
Important point. I want to bring in terms of a practical level, what we can do to safeguard congregants and the faithful that go for these rituals. Do we have the NSRI, Craig Lambanon, with us? I understand that Craig is with us. Craig, good to have you on the program. A lot of these rituals happening at the seashore, often, sometimes into the ocean, rivers, dams, etc. What are some of the red flags? What should people know? I know there's a whole lot of issues with regards to rip currents, etc. Tell us what people should be aware of, Craig.
Yeah, so good evening. And again, also as per everybody else, our condolences to those who have lost a loved one, and our thoughts are with those who are missing loved ones. There are a couple of just basic safety measures that can immediately put in place at no expense. There is understandably the thought that is going around at the moment is that should there be a stricter rules and regulations around this, but we don't believe that is a solution. Rather than safety around water generally should be on everybody's mind. The NSRI has embarked on quite a massive project to teach people safety around water, survival swimming, how to do CPR, and also how to call in an emergency if you're faced with an emergency. So just some of the immediate things that we can think of, that we are absolutely grateful to the SABC for opening this dialogue. It's something that we are also encouraging the Department of Education to have at schools, a dialogue around safety around water. But one of the immediate things is to know the emergency telephone numbers, have them programmed in your phone, that when you are around water, for any reason, even if it means for a baptism, that you can, if there's an emergency, you can immediately call the emergency services so that there's no delay in a response. And then to have something like a floating object that you can have at the ready, that if somebody, and it doesn't matter if it's the sea, in a lake, in a dam, or in a river, that if somebody does for any reason get swept away, you can throw that floating object to that person, that they can hold on to that floating object until an emergency response arrives on the scene. We are aware that this particular incident in the Yingske River, there was a very swift response to that. The response was massive and very quick. So it is a case of having just general safety around water. And it's all water, you know, even your swimming pool at home should have a cloak of safety around it. We've also gone so far as to encourage parents to make sure that if your child is swimming or in or around water, and again, it doesn't matter for what reason, it might be for a baptism, it might be just simply for recreation, but to have a responsible person that is at the ready to step in if the person gets into trouble. Now, drowning is actually a silent affair. If a person drowns, they slip underwater without any warning, without any indication that they are in any kind of trouble. So it is a case of that person is responsibly watching over people while they're in the water. Can't be distracted by a cell phone or distracted by conversation.
Craig, just give me a second.
They need to be physically watching the person.
I think Professor Motshekga's mic is on. If I can ask him just to mute for a bit, I will come back to him in a short while. Craig, would you say there is a particular season or seasons that people should stay away from rituals that are performed in rivers or streams, etc.?
I really don't think that is the solution. I mean, understandably, at the moment, we know that there's rains pretty much going on all around South Africa. And we know that the floods in the Gauteng area have been devastating to a lot of people. So, you know, if it's the rainy season and you're inland, that might be an idea to say, you know, the NSRI always says to anybody launching a craft to go to sea, if you're going down to the beach, or for that matter, if you're going down to a river, lake, or a dam for recreational purposes, always check the weather before you go, and that's the South African Weather Service.
Yeah.
The South African Weather Service are right up there with the best of the best. And we follow ourselves. We follow the South African Weather Service. And they know what they're talking about. And they'll also regularly change a forecast if the forecast changes. So that's a clear indication.
Right.
But then those other small steps, having the emergency telephone numbers handy, that if somebody does get into any kind of trouble, you can call the emergency services swiftly. And then if you're in and around water, to have a floating object nearby, that if that person does get into difficulty, you can throw the floating object to them.
Yeah.
In this case, it's probably very difficult because those tributaries that run into the Yixkay River or the Klip River, or for that matter, the Yixkay River itself, if there's a rainfall further upstream, and you might be in good weather further downstream, when a flash flood appears, and those flash floods appear in a flood, it's not it's not a gradual rise of water. So it's literally, our suspicion is, although we don't like to speculate, our suspicion is that there were people maybe not even in the water at the time. They might have been standing on the embankment, but yet they got swept off their feet, and then they were swept away. And that is obviously a cause for concern, but at the same time, it's something that does happen. We know that it happens, but it's dialogue like what you've opened up to here that's going to help other people in the future. And there we always say that in the tragedy, is there a legacy that has been left behind? And that legacy might be the legacy of these 15 people that have lost their lives. And we know of that baby that is still missing. But this is something that everybody needs to take very seriously. Safety around water generally.
Craig, stand by. I'm going to come back to you in a short while. I also want to get Gogo Dineo's take with regards to the emphasis of spirituality, but also looking at the practical steps that Craig is talking about. Xolile, we'll also touch base with you with regards to what's on your checklist in terms of when to perform these rituals. We're talking about how to get to that better place by still practicing the rituals, traditions that you have every right to, but in a safe way. Quick break. More next. All right, welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. We're trying to figure out the best way in order to maintain our cultures, perform our religious rituals and practices, but also being safe at the same time. We have a number of guests here, the better minds, as I call them, to get us to that better place that we keep on talking about on this program in terms of being safe in South Africa while performing rituals and ceremonies. Let's take it to Dineo, Gogo Dineo. And you heard before the break, Craig Lambenon was talking about the practical steps that you can take in order to stay safe. But there is obviously, when you go through something like this, for instance, a baptism, there's this huge emphasis on the spirituality, but we forget about the practicality. How best can we get the message to the people with regards to prioritizing both aspects?
I think you spoke about red flags, right? And one of the things is that people don't wake up and go to a baptism. People don't wake up and go to a cleansing. There is processes that needs to be followed. And also when you are going for a cleansing, I can speak about cleansing. What is the intention and what are the processes and the preparation one has to do before, during and post the cleansing to ensure that the intention of the cleansing are fulfilled. The other thing is that when we speak about practicalities, we're speaking here, but when it has to go into us implementing those practicalities, spiritual practitioners are then excluded from the conversation because they see this as let's harbor the problem by just having scientific interventions. There are African scientists who are spiritually gifted to interpret the language of the water. So we can even tell that this water, as clean as it looks, but is not clean because there's no life that lives in it. So even if we perform a ritual, it will not meet its intentions. The other thing, I spoke earlier, and Xolile said, no, there are no bylaws. And when I started early with my work as Isangoma, there were areas where they were guarded that we had no access to because they were in the suburbs. And those areas had better flat surfaces, for us to be far away from the water while we are preparing to go inside the waters.
Yes.
But they used the bylaws
Yes.
that were passed in the 1960s by the apartheid government restricting practitioners. So therefore practitioners resort to unsafe spaces where there is not enough of flat surfaces, where you can't even throw in a safety net because they are trying to do what they feel is their religious expression.
Yeah.
But what is written on paper and the structures and the systems in place are not there.
Yeah.
So if we can't create further laws, because there are laws that don't allow us to actually enter into bodies of water. So if we are going to be creating laws, we should also make access to safer river spaces where there are enough surfaces where people can see what's going on. And to us as practitioners, you can't go on your own to perform such a big ritual as a baptism of 15 people, because according to the story of one of the survivors said that the pastor was inside the water alone. So do you have other people who are aiding, putting people in around with you should anything else happen? So there's a lot. I mean, this is not a conversation where we can get to solutions tonight, because this is issues quite complex, but we're just throwing it out there. My plea is to say to our government, because I know they want to react to the situation so it could look like they've done something. You can't be having conversation and excluding people who carry the indigenous knowledge of this land and understanding how this land works. So it's very important that we don't end here, but it continues outside this platform.
100%. This is the whole purpose, I guess, to spark the debate, isn't it? To get the conversation going, because it's real. We need solutions fast. Xolile, talk to us about what Gogo was saying. In terms of more educational programs or bringing into the cultural practitioners into these conversations. Is enough being done in order to get their attention as well? What is being done?
Okay, Blair, I'll hop around your question a little bit before I come to answer it. Okay, so the main problem with these rituals and ceremonies, right, they are performed in secrecy.
Yeah.
So as much as you would like to educate the community about the dangers of water and high rises of water in the currents and whatnot, they don't tell anyone when they go into this. So there is no preparation like having whatever safety measure to put in water at that present moment. Because when they go, I can be with you in the house and you wouldn't know where I woke up and went to in the morning. So mostly they happen in that form of way. So, and the danger in it as well has increased as much as Mam Nanza was saying. She is not aware of the process where the priest or the pastor or the reverend or whatever it may be puts like a number of people in water to baptize them. Because usually we are familiar with baptism that happens singularly, like one person at a time. So now they put them in water. I'm not sure whether it's lack of knowledge or information that people can actually line up in water, and they don't even check the weather. They don't know whether there are chances of rain during that's going to occur that day. So with us, mainly, what we do is we've got about over 30 fire stations in the city of Johannesburg, and the 9 regions have the 7 regions have 9 educational centers inside the fire station. So what my colleagues do, they go around educating the communities about the dangers of such. So we hold like awareness campaigns around suburbs, informal settlements, just generally, especially now, seeing that it is a rainy season.
So these are in place. I guess what maybe Gogo is trying to say is that it needs to happen more, frequently and on a wider scale in order to reach people. We're fast running out of time, but let's get Pastor Gregory John's take. Red flags for you, possible solutions, Pastor.
Yeah, let me just say, irrespective of your religious or cultural convictions regarding baptism, cleansing ceremonies, the safety of the congregants must be your first priority. And it's also important that common sense must prevail. Now, there are many things that I don't understand about what our brother mentioned earlier about energy levels and all of those things. Those things I do not deny. However, the basic common sense must prevail. In this particular case, I believe that the pastor was already forewarned about the flooding, that he told people to get into the water, and some of them actually got out of the water because they used common sense. Otherwise, there could have been a greater number of people that actually drowned. And so also as shepherds, we have been entrusted to take care of the flock and not to put their lives in danger. One last thing that I want to mention, it even pains those families that the pastor is not availing himself to offer them counseling. And in fact, I believe that he was a counselor. This is the time that they need counseling, and this is the time when some of those people can find closure. But from what I know from the readings, he's nowhere to be found. And this adds to the sorrow and the pain of those who have lost loved ones.
It does indeed. We will see what the investigations reveal. It's still under investigations. Let's see what police come up with regards to this. Definitely value added, a blessing to the audience, all of you on Digital Audience. Thank you so much for your time. Kolile as well, appreciate your time and your take. Also to Professor Motshekga there as well. Sometimes these signals are not too great, made even worse with regards to load shedding, but I guess we got to the point, and as Gogo said, we need to take it to the next level. Starting the conversation, but we need to get to that better place. Here's my take. Everything that happens presents an opportunity for you and me to grow, to respond, to act, even if it brings us great pain, great melancholy. Suffering often changes us. Comfort after tragedy. It's tough, but as they say, hard times make strong people, and it takes strong people to make good times. So let's put purpose to your pain, the pain of the families who lost loved ones in these drownings, because there is this common concern, and I believe the collective will to be better. Let's bind together. Let's become interconnected and learn from one another like we did tonight, so that we can be safe in our admiration and deference for something better up above us. Just a reminder, please go to our YouTube channel, watch this episode again, SABC, It's Topical. Until next week, take care, bye-bye.